Right, and I'm just going to head over. And then if one of you wouldn't mind going into the WP Builds group and just seeing if a post pops up, it'll probably take at least 40 seconds. And it will be me saying what I'm currently saying, which is a bit sad.
Oops! I just generally started looking on Facebook instead.
No, it's so easy.
Literally got sucked in immediately.
So easy. So easy to do.
I know.
Yeah, it's there. Cool.
Oh.
Yep. Okay, so it's working.
Stuff.
Yeah. I might just have a check. Just tell me if it stays stable. Sorry, if anybody is currently watching this, you're about to enter the most boring live thing ever for the next 30 seconds because I'm just testing that it all works, which is a bit sad. We've had some real glitches with all of this, and I just want to make sure it's working. And there's 3 people watching, which probably equates to me, David, Paul, and yeah, it's us watching. Right, so is that all hunky-dory?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay, should we go for it? Let's do it. Let's do a webinar. David keeps going. Right, hello. Let's make a proper start. Thank you if you've joined us. This is one of those WP builds. We're starting these weekly news roundup things and getting people in the WordPress space to come along and join me and discuss the WordPress weekly news. If you don't know, we release an episode on a Monday morning, comes out at about 7 o'clock in the UK, and it's about 15 to 20 minutes, although this week's was much, much longer by accident. Summation of the previous week's WordPress news, and then we do this live thing where we talk it through and see if there's any conclusions that we can draw from it or any things that, pique our interest. So today we have Paul Lacey. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Do you want to do your elevator pitch? We don't have Chris Badgett here today, so no pressure.
Yeah, he's got a really good one, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so Paul Lacey here from the Dicky Bird Studio. We're a WordPress and UX agency in the UK.
That'll do it. That's lovely. And we were going to have somebody on, but sadly they were unable to make it. And so very, very kindly, at the very last minute, Shane Reilly, who is a friend of Paul's. This is the first time I've met Shane, so I haven't really been properly introduced, but hello. Do you want to do your elevator pitch and let us know who you are?
So sorry for the slight downgrade in guest, but happy to be here. No, I'm kidding. Self-deprecating humor is my thing. So I am an owner of a small agency in Johannesburg, South Africa. We've got about 5 of us, and we do basically what Paul does.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, really appreciate you stepping in. It's lovely.
Cool.
Very, very kind of you. I understand that did you meet Paul initially just a couple of weeks back at Lee's agency Trailblaze? Is that the first time you hooked up?
Yeah, that's the first time we met in person, but we've been digital friends for some time. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very nice. Cool. Okay, so and the last one is the ever intermittent David Waumsley, who currently is in India, and his reception is coming and it's going. It's rather like probably the beach that he's looking at. The tide is coming in and going out, and so is his internet. David, can you hear us?
I can hear you. It's whether you can hear me.
Great.
But I'm David Waumsley. I run a small...
That's so good. That's literally the perfect place to stop.
Oh, no, I'm not going to call it a web.
Oh, David, it was priceless. I don't know if you can hear me anymore, but basically it said, I'm David Waumsley and I run a small.
I'm here.
That's all we got, which is brilliant. Anyway, we should probably get back to it. David, let's let's assume that it's going to work and sort of press on regardless. So if you go over to wpbuilds.com, on the right-hand side in the main navigation is a button labeled Archives. And the very first item in that, no, the second item is called News Archive. And if you click on that, Paul's gone. Paul's totally gone. Is the News Archive. And if you click on the most recent one, it's the one we're going to be talking about today. It starts with a few updates to WordPress core. WordPress 5.2 came out this week. Did you all update straight away, or do you live in fear of that stuff? Paul?
Yeah, I updated straight away. I just thought it'd be fine.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, everything was.
Yep.
I think one website broke. It was on some old host, and it had an old version of PHP on it. That was it.
Yep. Of course, that was one of the takeaways, wasn't it? Is that your PHP version, it now matters what you're on. Anything before 5.6, I believe it was, you're now not going to be able to update. Not only will it just sort of fail, it just simply won't even try. It'll just give you a warning. The notable features in this are the site health check, this PHP error protection, so that if instead of giving you a white screen of death, the idea is that if a plugin fails, it will alert you instead of dying. There's a bunch of plugin compatibility checks. We've got new dash icons and so on and so forth. Yeah, I heard in our Facebook group that one person had a problem, but everybody else, it was fine. I waited for about 48 hours because there was simply no need for me not to wait 48 hours. There was virtually no security stuff in there.
Yeah.
So I just waited and then went into my main WP install and clicked update all. And that was a few days ago, and nothing exciting to report. Anybody? Yeah, all good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great. In which case, let's move on. Let's do the next piece. Right, so the next piece is, I've called it community, but it's actually got nothing to do with community. It's to do with the WordPress admin area. This is on the WP Tavern website. It's called WordPress Designers Explore Proposal to Simplify WP Admin Navigation. Personally, I don't really see that there's a problem with what we've currently got. This is specifically when you're logged in, the menu on the left-hand side, the black menu by default. But there's a new proposal, which suddenly, now that I see it, it kind of makes me think, actually, that would be a good idea. And it's basically to put everything into accordion. So where at the moment you've got things that fly out, if you've got a menu, for example, main WP is a good one because it's got a sub menu. The flyout menu is about 15 items long. It's absolutely huge. And this would just simply put everything in an accordion. It means that the end result, the menu itself would be wider, but we could put the font size up. And because nothing's flying out, it would work really well on mobile. If you got a chance to read it, does anybody want to say what you think? Nobody. Shall I move on?
I don't know if you can you even
David's
hear
got
me?
his hand up.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, wow, I'm here. No, I was just thinking about, I did actually quickly look over it. I think my only concern that at the moment we can very easily can't we send new items. There's lots of tools to do that. So I'm a bit worried about whether it will be just adjusted for one type of expected WordPress user, which is the DIYer who wants to get in it as an alternative to Wix or Weebly. But one thing, you said about it be wider, but on the present one, we can still click and just move it to icons. So I'm wondering if that will still remain, because it's quite a problem if you're using WordPress, particularly with a page builder on a small screen.
I think if you're on a small screen, the intention is that this would basically dominate the entire width of the device. And so, if you've got, let's say, 4 sections, what they're intending is sections, for example, I think one of the sections was called Site, and they had various generic names. You'd minimize it down to sort of 4 or 5 different things, and they would occupy the whole width of the device, rather like a website that you would build, and then you click on it and access the various bits and pieces that you need, which is better, I think, than what we've got at the moment. It's just an idea, but it strikes me as a pretty neat idea. I kind of like the thought of doing it. So I briefly turned off my screen for a moment there. Did anybody raise their hand, or shall I just move on? Okay.
I think it'd be good for me and Shane and David, quite honestly, as aspiring YouTubers making WordPress tutorials. It would just reset the whole of it would reset every WordPress tutorial ever made and give us
Yes.
a chance to catch up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great idea. Yeah, immediately everything you know.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
good point. Yeah, from that point of view, it'd be really disruptive, wouldn't it? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Anybody that's used WordPress for even 10 minutes can make that jump. But if somebody's using WordPress and they're a total noob just beginning and they are relying on YouTube tutorial, yeah, that's right. I mean, hopefully you'd figure it out and they'd nest them under the same things. But it just seems like a nifty idea as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. We've got, this may interest some people. There's a session which goes on. It's like a word camp in a way. It's called Word Sesh. But the idea of Word Sesh is that you do it all virtually. So it's like a virtual conference. This is just a bit of a heads up to say it's happening. The speakers, I'm not sure about the status of the speakers. I know that some of our friends have already got speaking gigs at it. So that's good. But this is basically to say that the tickets are now available and it's very soon. In fact, it's in about 9 days' time. So get yourself along to that. Strangely, the sort of, I suppose the idea of this is that it doesn't take place in a particular geographical location. You can sit in your bedroom and watch it. Nevertheless, people desperate to sort of join together under these circumstances have set up their own little community so that they can watch it together, which is quite interesting. There's one in Lagos in Nigeria, one in Minneapolis, Mumbai, Palm Beach and Scottsdale. They're the ones that I've found out about so far. But yeah, there you go. Nice Word Sesh. I don't know if anybody's going to be speaking there that you know.
Kyle Van Duzen is speaking there.
There you go. Kyle.
Of the admin bar.
Duzen from the admin bar. He's going to be speaking there. So yeah, go and get yourself a ticket. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm just going to skip because it's probably not relevant to us at the moment. And I am going to hop straight to a security item, which on the face of it is difficult to understand, I suppose. There was a few security bits that we talked about this week, and they're a little bit above my head. I just included them in case you have a particular plugin and you need to be a bit mindful of that. But there's one here on the Paragon IE. So it's Paragon Initiative, which is paragonie.com. And this just kind of alerted me to something I've never even thought about before. And it's the idea that if you could in some way infect the supply chain for WordPress itself, in other words, we've all just updated to 5.2. What if you could hack into that infrastructure so that you could stick a payload of nasty stuff into WordPress core and then ship that to how many? 30 million, 40 million, 50? I don't know what it is. It's a big number ending in lots of zeros. And it was just about the fact that WordFence, I think it was, whilst doing some research, they discovered that this was technically possible, that this vulnerability did exist in the wild. Obviously, it's now been fixed. And since WordPress 5.2, again, the technical details are a bit beyond the scope of this. We've now got a kind of handshake going on. So your WordPress install will reach back to the servers over at wordpress.org and just make extra sure that the whole thing is working smoothly and the file that you're receiving is as it should be. But imagine taking over 1/3 of the net by perpetrating that attack. That's absolutely breathtaking, isn't it? Luckily, it didn't happen, but it speaks of the responsibility, that the guys who are managing this stuff have got to go through in order to make sure that none of this stuff is infected. Any thoughts on that one? Yeah, go for it, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, all the websites that we manage for clients, that something like that could, if I just think on the scale of my business, how it would affect it, and then just spread that to like basically everybody who uses WordPress as like the basis for what they do for their clients, that could have just been catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really bear thinking about. My guess is that although this vulnerability was obviously discovered, my guess is that there's probably a lot of very, very clever eyeballs checking the code base before it's released.
Yeah.
And, but then equally, I imagine there's some very, very clever and possibly well-funded eyeballs in the hacker community trying to do the exact opposite. And, WordPress core.org core must be a massive, it must have a big target painted on its back.
Yeah.
You could just slip in some, I don't know, SEO mischief or some redirection mischief or something like that. David's gone. Hopefully he'll be back. Anyway, there you go. Interesting piece of news.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on. Talking about security, put that behind us, and we'll go on to talk about some plugins and themes. There's some really good, interesting stuff this week that's come out. Possibly of most interest to me this week is the release of ACF 5.8.0. The article itself is on the advancedcustomfields.com website, and it's entitled ACF 5.8.0 Release. PHP blocks for Gutenberg. Now, I don't know if anybody's been following this or has played with this, but we talked about lazy blocks last week, which I think is a similar initiative, similar idea. But the fact that Elliot's plugin ACF has got so many current installs probably means that he's a real contender to make this his own territory, if you like. The idea is that you can create blocks of your own. So we're all familiar with what that means. But if you are a real noob to the block editor, the idea isn't that it's limited to, let's put in text or a picture. The idea is that the blocks can encapsulate all sorts of other fields. And so Elliot, realizing that not everybody wants to work with JavaScript. In fact, he's been quite vocal in this. Why throw the baby out with the bathwater? Lots of us are accustomed to using PHP for this kind of stuff. So he's written a system whereby you can create all this stuff with a few lines of PHP, and it kind of could easily be a copy and paste exercise, and you can create blocks immediately. So a simple example might be a testimonial block where in it you put an image and you put the name and you put what their quote is and so on. And then you click the add icon at the top of the block editor, and it says testimonials block. And you add it in, fiddle with the text in the the sidebar and so on. And now it's achievable to people who haven't got the time to go out and learn the technicalities of JavaScript to make this possible. Any thoughts, guys? I'm really bullish about this. Paul?
I think it's pretty awesome, and I'm looking at the example at the moment of a testimonial and on the website. And as usual, like the ACF documentation is the best in the business. Mm-hmm. It's the easiest to follow. There's all the cut and paste scripts that you can easily kind of, break apart. And I think you said it, Nathan, in the news show. I don't want to learn JavaScript deeply. I don't want to. I'm okay with PHP, and I can, cut and paste a bit of JavaScript, and I don't want to learn it deeply, and I don't have time. So this was probably inevitably going to come, and I'm just really glad that it has, because we can definitely use it on all of our sites.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched David McCann in the WP Builds Facebook group posted, and if somebody can dig it up, he wrote I don't mean us, I mean if you're interested in this, go and dig it up. He wrote a post a couple of days ago saying, excellent, this is all here now, brilliant. And then he commented later, he posted a YouTube video, and somebody, I don't know where they're from, but somebody had put together a 20-minute video explaining literally how to do every single thing. And it was very, very nicely done, very slow and patient. And here's what you do. And it included enqueuing your CSS so that your style sheet's loaded. And it included all of the bits and pieces you need to know how to do it. And I can see this being really useful. If you've got, let's say, a client and they just want a simple testimonial block, and you really don't want to give them all the heartache of learning how to use, say, a page builder, or you don't want to go through the process of setting all this up as a difficult to use custom post type. Well, now it's available, and it's absolutely fabulous. So highly commended. I don't know if there was anything else that came up in this particular release. Let's just have a look. Simple templating. It says it's all done in PHP. That's kind of it. So this is brilliant. Yeah. So hats tip Hat tip to Elliot. David, now that you've come back, we were just talking about ACF and it being at 5.8, this custom block capability. Do you see yourself using this or playing with it?
I do later, but I mean, to Gutenberg at all yet because it doesn't do the layout. But of course, as soon as I hear me, can you? I
can.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Can you hear me? There's a pregnant pause.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Sorry. Yeah. So. About it. You're just playing with me.
No, we're not. You were perfect until the point where you tried to describe what it is that you were trying to describe, and then it went away. Oh, I'm so sorry about this, David. It's not working out your internet today, is it? But you are. Sorry. No, I think the takeaway is that you're not going to use it because you don't use Gutenberg yet. I found only one real use for Gutenberg, and that's for creating this piece of content, the news content, because it is just a bunch of paragraphs. For everything else, I've got no reason to use it yet. That's an interesting thing. I mean, like Shane or Paul, do you ever get yourself into Gutenberg? Do you ever play with it at all?
Clients are using it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've played around with it a little bit, and we have it live on a handful of client sites who are sort of open to change, and then others we've just installed the classic editor so that they don't freak out when they like go to write a blog post and they're like, "What is this?" I find it like super intuitive from the UX UI sort of point of view, but I think it's great that like it gives you the added ability to lay out your blog posts differently, so it's not all template based all of the time, which is great. But I don't know, I see like it's going to take a while before they take over the page builders. I think just purely like in the blog side of things, I think it's great, but in terms of like holistically building a website, I just don't think it's quite there yet.
Yeah.
What I like about this ACF release is that it gives the ability to use ACF custom fields within the blocks that you build for Gutenberg. So you could potentially create your custom post types and your custom fields and then incorporate those into the blocks that you build relatively easily. And so I think that's something that they've got going for them, which is really cool.
It kind of feels like the beginning. You know, we'll just have to wait and see. Hang in. My hang up with the block editor at the minute is just the UX of writing content. Things just literally actually get in the way. You know, the mouse, I'll type something and then I'll kind of click to make something a link, and then UI elements appear over the top, and I'm in that block now, and then the UI for that block is at the top, you know, the center aligner, and I have to then find a bit of the page which I know does nothing, and then click over there to make it all go away. And then I've tried to, you know, lock it all to the top instead. Either whatever I do, it's not perfect. And I've come up with little workarounds. You know, I've just got into the habit of clicking over in this part of the screen, but yeah, not quite there yet. Okay. Go Shane.
I think also for me, like on the right-hand side, down the side there, like in the classic editor, you would have, I mean, it's still there, but you would have like your theme options. So if I wanted this specific page to have a transparent header or whatever, depending on what theme you're using, like that stuff to me was inside of Gutenberg. It just got like this long list of like things that's like really difficult to figure out what's going on down the side there. So I'd say they need to work on that as well.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There was something about the old UI that meant that when I began working in a custom post type, it was all kind of where I expected it to be, and obviously you can drag it and what have you. Everything seems to be completely randomly opened or closed.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, where's the featured image? Oh, but it was open. Like, now it's all shit. Where is it? And you find it. And so, I know exactly what you mean. Maybe some very vague bits of coloring or something. I don't know, like to stripe it a bit so that it doesn't all look the same. David?
Yeah, I was just, if you can hear me, I just think what Elliot's doing is so exciting, and I think the Gutenberg block idea is so exciting, and it is literally edited. People excited about what the AC really exciting that I can't yet.
No,
Teach enough
he's gone
people
again.
to use and get over. If that's really
I think we got about, I would say, somewhere between 8 and 8.4% of it. That would be my guess. Yeah, exactly. 8.5, way too much. But I think you like his stuff. Next time we do this, David, and you're on, I'm going to fly you over to somewhere like, I don't know, the centre of London.
you know, well, next time I'm on, I will be in Thailand, so it'll be perfect.
Oh, good. Okay, good. All right. So there we go. Thumbs up. Absolute props to Elliot Condon. We like what you've done. Now, whether or not this next piece is going to create like or dislike has yet to be seen. But we have, for a very large amount of time, WPMU Dev has been on the scene, creating loads and loads and loads of plugins. They have a model, a subscription model. I don't know what the exact cost is, but it's on the more expensive side, shall we say. And they've had plugins which many have felt have been receiving a lot of attention. Maybe there's 7 or 8 core plugins which have felt like they've been updated. They've got really interesting like superhero iconography and all of that kind of stuff. But they've also got a lot of stuff which feels like it's been neglected and it's now been put out to pasture. They wrote a blog post. I don't know exactly who wrote it. Was it James Farmer, possibly being the CEO? Wrote a blog post basically saying we are going to kill 90% of our plugins as of today. And anything that we kill is going over onto, I believe, GitHub. It's going somewhere anyway. You can still get access to it. But we're just going to stop working on it, except the core stuff. So things like Hustle, things like Smush and Defender. If you're a subscriber, you'll know all the ones that have been receiving updates. It's the ones with all the icons. And so what do we think, Paul?
So when I was about 15, I got chased by this gang of lads, right? And I just ran and I ran and I ran, and then I dived in a bush, and I just hid in this bush and they couldn't get me. And then I waited in this bush for a good 30 minutes. And then when I came out of the bush, they were gone. And it feels like that's what WPMU have got to do. You know, they've got some people. It's a move that it's something they've got to do. They've got to dive in the bush, keep the heads down, and then when everyone's forgot about those 90% of plugins, then it'll be all good again.
Yeah,
it'll be all fine.
I really did wonder where you were going with that. That's great. I like that.
True story.
Yeah.
I lost my shoe when I was running. I was running that hard. My shoe fell off. I was going to get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
Shane, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think in some of the chatter that I've seen, particularly in the websites as a service groups and stuff, I'm not sure how you pronounce that word, WAS or WAS or whatever. But yeah, so some of the chatter that I've seen there is people talking about possible opportunities arising out of that. Like, so there are some neglected plugins within the 90% that they're sort of ditching while they hide in the bush. And that they're going to release all the code for that. And so there's potential for people to go and take those and extend them or bring them into some other system or whatever. So there's some guys who are developing plugins for the WAS turnkey website thing that are saying, well, one of their plugins is the Pro Sites one, which is sort of like WP Ultimo, but like an older version or whatever. And there are guys saying, well, maybe there's opportunity there to take one of those and use the code, make it better, release it out as their own thing. So I guess there's that, but I'm sure there are several people that are pretty upset about their subscriptions changing like that. But
It's interesting you should say that, actually. On the page itself, although not many rivals get a particular mention, they do mention some places to go to seek a product which is aligned to what they've killed.
Yeah.
So, for example, it says Pro Sites, and then they point to Arindo, Duque,
Yeah.
WP Ultimo. Marketpress, they say go to Woo, which is, a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
They don't for their Course Press thing. There's a few where they don't. But at least they're making an effort to do that.
Yeah.
I think the argument here would be we're just wasting our resources on things which virtually nobody's using. They've kind of stagnated for us as a company. So they're kind of I don't know, the horse has bolted. There's better alternatives in many of these areas. So we'll just stop working on those, and we'll try to work and produce really nice stuff in the area where we're going to concentrate. And then, of course, they've got this new hosting option, which they're floating as well. So I don't know if people who are paying the fee will suddenly feel, well, 90% of that fee is now worthless. So rather, let's say it's $59 a month. I think it's about there, something like that. Well, now it should be $9, because 90% is
we're
gone.
subscribers, aren't we? No. Are you a subscriber?
I am.
Shane?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yep, I am.
I'm happy about it as a subscriber that didn't use any of those kind of more obscure plugins, because I just, having met them at WordCamp as well, and met Tim, the Coup, a few times, and they're all saying the same thing. All of the team are just totally on board with this new direction, which is great. Because I was keeping, it's a subscription I was keeping for one or two plugins, Smush and maybe one other. But now there's a bunch of them that are going to be super plugins.
Yeah,
that's cool.
They had a bit of a trial run maybe it was last year, maybe a couple of years ago. They ditched Upfront. Was it Upfront, their page builder? I believe that's what it was called. And I didn't use it, but that went by the wayside, and kind of felt they were preparing the ground a bit there and sort of seeing what the public reaction was. But interesting, though, to just do it all in one hit, as opposed to, I don't know, going for drop 10 a year, or going for the approach of, right, you've got 6 months or a year from today, and then we're going to stop working on them. Just going for the out the blue media hit and just making them all go away. I mean, like I say, I'm a subscriber, so this to me feels better. Some of their newer stuff is like the hub is really great, and if you want, those client reports are getting better. So
and you get a couple of hosting servers as well, don't you?
Yeah, 3, I think. I think you get 3
sites.
Yeah, 3 sites, and their infrastructure is to my mind, everything that I've read about it looks good. I've put one test site on there, and it behaved exactly as advertised. It was fast, and it did exactly what it said, and it was as easy as it can be. You click a button, and it has all of their, if you're a heavy user of their stuff and you install their plugins out the box, all of that stuff comes across. So that's, it's quite nice.
Cool.
There is a couple of updates to some of their plugins. So, for example, their Hummingbird plugin, which is their caching speed optimization plugin, that's received an update, but maybe not go into that one. Let's talk about Oxygen instead, the Oxygen page builder. They've updated to 2.3. They've got a lovely video on the website. I can't remember the guy's name. It might be Isaac or something who works for them. He's on this great 20-minute long video, and he highlights for half of the time the modal pop-up element that they've got, which is great, exactly what you'd expect. Build it in a page builder, deploy it on the site. But then this really fabulous feature called the user design library. Did any of you watch the video or check it out? I thought this was great, because basically anything that you want to kind of like save and transport to somewhere else, you save it in this design library, and a code. It's just a long string of random. It's like a license code. It's just like that. And then you go to your other Oxygen site, paste in that string, and all of that stuff just comes across. So this felt like if you're an Oxygen user, this felt like a phenomenally easy way to reuse stuff. Now, I confess I didn't really concentrate too hard on the details, so I don't know if there's any limitations in how many things you can bring across. I was kind of feeling that maybe this was the beginnings of a monetization strategy, you know, pre-built blocks. I mean, you know all about that, Paul. You know, where you could purchase such a code and paste it in and boom, there they are. But it felt like this was nice new tech and a nice new way of solving a problem that no doubt we've all got, constantly reinventing the wheel each time we start a new site. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've known about that coming update for a while. I think there was a couple of previous videos about it, and I was really tempted with Oxygen actually, just to, you know, and I've had a go with it and all that, and it's really, really innovative. The code it outputs is totally clean, but for us, we're sticking with what we like, which is Generate Press and Beaver Builder, because we've, especially since the Cobalt apps released new versions of their Thema Pro and Instant IDE, which has got support for SAS. SAS as in CSS SAS, and Adrian in our team's been building a really amazing blueprint site, and it's kind of just made it pointless to look elsewhere. But if I was new to all this stuff now, and I was like, where do I go? Do I go to Beaver Builder? Do I go to Elementor? Do I go to Brizy? Do I go to Oxygen? I'd be really tempted by Oxygen because of what it's doing, and there's some things I don't like about it, how it takes over absolutely everything, but that's maybe just because I don't understand how it does it, so it makes me slightly nervous. That's all.
You don't need a theme, do you? The theming layer is completely stripped out.
It deactivates your theme, actually.
Yeah, or any requirement to have a theme, which is really interesting. Again, just so unfamiliar. And the pricing is crazy.
It's
cheap,
crazy.
You know, $99. I don't know what the commitment regarding that pricing is. I mean, presumably at some point it'll turn over to a subscription model, but at the minute it's a right steal if you can get into it. I know a couple of the people in our group who are really keen on it, and you know, as soon as they'd played with it for a period of time, whatever the required period of time is for you to know it enough that you think, oh yeah, it can do this and this and this, they've kind of stuck with it and really kind of become evangelical about it. And this is a great feature. I think this is really fascinating. So we'll see how this progresses.
It reminds me of Updraft Plus. If anyone's ever used Updraft Plus to migrate a site, and you create a site key, and then you paste the site key in the other site, and it moves all the stuff across. It's similar to that.
Just does it.
But,
just works.
Yeah. There's some people worried about, you know, their pricing model, which I'm sure they'll go to an annual one soon. But the thing is, these guys, you know, they create the WP all. Is it the all export? And the
all import. Yeah.
And they actually have some. I imagine, because you know I'm paying them some money every year, plus I'm paying them some money every month as well. Because if you use their automated export, it's like a replacement to cron job. So if you want it to kind of do an export and send an email to someone every week or something, then you have to pay, you know, $9 to them or whatever to do that. So they've got all sorts of income streams, and they've got a huge user base, and so I don't think there's anything to worry about from their sort of financial issue. Financial point of view. Yeah,
it's so easy to forget how massive WordPress is as well. You know, it's huge. There might be 500-600 people a month subscribing at that level, and if it continues that way, then it's profitable. I don't know what the size of their team is. Okay, fascinating. Let's see where this space goes. Very quickly, WordPress 5.2. Sorry, what am I saying? Jetpack 7.3 has got what I've regard as a really bizarre feature included in it. I don't know if you saw this. There's this thing called the membership block. Obviously, everything's about blocks these days. New block. And Jetpack have this thing called a membership block, which seems to me to be a bit of a damp squib. Please correct me in the comments if I'm completely wrong. But basically, it includes a Stripe capability block, which allows you to take a payment. That's kind of it, and yet they're calling it a membership block, but it doesn't really do any of the traditional things that you'd associate with membership, at least so the WP Tavern website says. So there's no kind of, you know, subscription model. You can access this content or this content. No, you can just set up a recurring payment. So maybe they were suggesting it should be called the Stripe recurring payment block instead. So there you go. If you're a Jetpack user, there you go. Yeah, you are. Yeah, Paul.
No, I'm not. I just want to say, I don't know who they're talking to sometimes. I mean, I had a problem with Jetpack just the other day. This week, actually, there was a website we'd done, and it was loading really slow in Australia. It was based in America, but obviously it's not going to load as fast. And then we checked the waterfall. It was the Jetpack statistics thing connecting back to WordPress.com with a lag of around 6 or 7 seconds. And we just couldn't get rid of it. And then so there isn't a button to turn off the statistics in Jetpack. You have to kind of Google it and then find someone who's like, oh, here's the secret link to get and where you can turn off the statistics. What? Please stop.
It's insane.
Yeah, it seems seemingly that people are polarized on Jetpack, aren't they? They love it or they hate it. I'm not a user, so I don't really have any insight what it does. Go on, Shane.
Yeah, it's the Marmite of it's the Marmite of plugins, I guess. You either love it or you hate it.
I like it. Okay. Yeah, let's move on. Let's get away from Jetpack. This is interesting. Yeah,
it's Marmite.
Yeah,
it's Marmite.
The plugin review. Sorry, the theme review team. I don't know if either of you have ever tried to submit a theme, but there was a massive queue, really unbelievably long queue. Recently, go back a couple of years, it was enormous to the point where it was kind of unworkable. The queue was just ridiculous. It just got longer and longer and longer. So they decided to introduce this mechanism whereby you would be compelled, if you wanted your theme to be reviewed quickly, which obviously everybody does, you were compelled or at least asked to submit reviews of other people's themes. It seems like, on the face of it, a great system. You review themes, and in exchange, we will bump your theme up, and you can get accepted. So they changed that recently because I don't think it quite worked. There weren't enough people doing it. So they've said now, basically, you need to keep working in perpetuity if you want your themes to be sort of bumped up. So in other words, you've got to contribute every month if you want this to happen. And a lot of people are basically saying this is now a pay-to-play model. It's kind of like a two-tier system, and it kind of moves away from the ethics. But, well, if there's nobody in it reviewing them anyway because they're all busy making their own themes, you got to do something, right? I don't know how you square that circle, but interesting piece of news anyway. If you've got anything to say it now. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Clearly seems like a system that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Open source is a great idea in so many
I don't want to
ways.
criticize, because the idea probably got diluted somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's, and how it's ended up coming out is just not the same as how it sounded at the beginning. But I mean, if I wasn't very nice, I'd be just like, yep, that theme's rubbish. That theme's rubbish. Okay. Rubbish. Oh, cool. I'm at the top. But then maybe they'd do that to me as well.
Until there's a sum total of one theme left in the repository, written by Paul Lacey's theme.
Yeah,
It's the
pretty good. It's quite good.
The benevolent dictator model. I don't know how you square this circle. Obviously, it's a victim of its own success. Who would have thought there'd be so many people submitting themes, and the need to keep the code clean and keep dodgy stuff out requires that they be vetted. But with a volunteer workforce, it was a good idea, I think, to figure out a way to make that volunteer workforce work a bit more towards the goal of pushing things through the gate. But it didn't. It hasn't quite worked out the way they were hoping. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, we're moving on in terms of time. Just to say one thing from WP Builds, we did a podcast this week with a guy called Robert Abella. He works with a plugin. Well, he invented a plugin called WP Security Audit Log, which basically audits absolutely everything on your website. So if that kind of thing interests you and you're into your security and tracking down where things have gone astray, go and check out that podcast. And Robert's plugin is dead good. It's really good. Anybody want to add anything on there, or should we talk about Gmail?
I'm good with Gmail.
Let's do a Gmail. Okay. This is cool. I love this because forever emails, well, it's like receiving a posted letter. You know, you get an email and it's flat, nothing changes. So Gmail are now playing with the idea. It's beta. They're calling it dynamic in email Gmail. That kind of rhymes. And the idea being that you can put AMP content, embed it in an email. And so anybody opening up the email gets the latest version. So an example might be, I don't know, let's say you're selling holidays or something like that, and you have an offer and you put an offer out and you knock 10% off all the prices. Well, with this setup, you don't need to resend those emails. You just change the AMP page and everybody's email, that component of the email, that bit, that block is updated. I think this is really cool.
My clients can send me an email now, say with this saying, "Hey, we haven't heard from you and then the days will go up. And when I eventually read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. So maybe is that what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I guess they can use it. They can use it for the holiday stuff. Actually, it'd be really good for events. You know, how many tickets remain and stuff like that.
Yes. I can just see it being used in so many different ways. I mean, obviously, like emails between you and me are of no consequence because, you know, I'll just write you another email if something's changed. But especially mass emailing, this I think could be really interesting. You know, just the ability, and I don't know what the limitations are. Maybe there'll be all sorts of, you know, caveats like you're not allowed to do this. This kind of advertising is out the question. You know, putting adverts in it and so on. I don't know. But the capability of putting that into them, I mean, who uses an email client out of you two, or do you use a browser-based email client, or do you use something on a desktop?
It's GetShift. Is it called GetShift?
Is that in a browser?
I think. No. Well, hang on a minute. It's Get. Is it called GetShift?
One of those browser wrapping things.
So it's just a wrapper. Exactly. So it basically
a wrapper to multiple tabs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody sent you an email with rich HTML in it, GetShift can do it. Well, I'm using G Suite and Google-based products. That can, I mean, presumably could totally do it, but we're still stuck in this era where it can't do it. I mean, it's a web page. It's a web page that you're viewing on a case-by-case basis. And I just see that the person that innovates in this space and the company that managed to take this off the ground could do some really interesting things. Obviously, you don't want your emails to just be full of, I don't know, dancing content and music, all of that kind of stuff. And it'll happen, won't it? But I just think it's a really cool idea. And if you could, like, let's say that you put a comment thread, that's the example that they actually show on this page. Okay. You could embed comments in an AMP page and then embed that in an email, and then that one email then becomes the only email you ever need to open to talk through that point. That's quite cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I don't know if you guys ever remember when Google released that thing called Wave.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like the new email or whatever. I don't know, unless I'm misunderstanding it, it makes me think of that in some ways. Maybe it's like another attempt at revolutionizing email.
Yeah, that Wave thing was so cool. I remember doing
it was cool.
First time it ever happened. I think it was the first moment I'd ever seen like somebody editing stuff on my computer.
Yeah.
In real time. And I remember what? They've just deleted what I wrote. And I think a lot of that got kind of rolled up and packaged in Google Docs. That technology quickly came into. So that's interesting. I wonder if you'll be able to delete content with other people's images. Anyway, the point I suppose is that email has long been this static thing. Google are taking an approach though. Let's try and update it. Let's try and make it something where there's components of interactivity. And I just think that's a great idea. I can't see, for now at least, I can't see a drawback. I think it'll be absolutely fascinating. I'd love to beta test this and just see how it goes. I mean, so for example, like just the simple task of organizing this podcast required several emails. And if I could send it once and then like Kyle, he can't come, he posts it in, and you know, everybody's in the know. You don't have to send out a slew of emails or track people down on Messenger. Maybe it's Google trying to get a bit more, you know, social media kind of stuff in there. Yeah, sorry, Shane. Yeah, go for it.
So how would that email just become unread when there's an update to it? Does it become unread and then move to the top of your inbox, or is there some kind of notification system? Or
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, the way that they're displaying it is through an animated GIF on their website or a little movie, and it doesn't really make that clear because it's right at the top and it looks unread already because it's black. You know, it's in bold, so it would look like an unread email. I'll tell you what you can do is, if it says here how to get started, so you need to be an administrator of your G Suite account. And then you go to Apps, G Suite, Settings for Gmail, User Settings, and there's an Enable Dynamic Email option, which you can check. So they've obviously, you know, to put this in as a tick box, they must have tested it and kind of battled hard on it, I would have thought. Yeah. But if you click on the item in the WP Bills news, you'll find it. But I'd love to play with that. That'd be great. Anyway, cool. There you go. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Don't know if anybody watched Google's I.O. Again, sorry, last few items are always nothing to do with WordPress. This is another interesting thing. Google on the stage at their I.O. conference last week, they showed off this AI capability, and they did it through some pretty weird ways, but it was quite novel. So they said, like, let's say you're a school child, or they framed it more like, Dad, tell me how big this shark is. Or can you tell me about this shark? I've got a homework project. And so you'd go and you'd search, and maybe Google would give you some answers, but, you know, basically you'll end up on a web page. Well, the idea with this is you search for it and it presents in the search an animated, like, shark. There's a shark in 3D swimming around. And then you click a little button and it puts it to scale in the environment that you're in. So if you're in a restaurant, it somehow works out the scale of it based upon the image data that it's receiving about the restaurant, and then plonks it in it. It's like, oh, that's how big it is. And you know, the child immediately, okay. It's like 15 foot long or whatever it might be. And sure enough, silly example, but God, surely this sort of stuff is the future. Augmented, like, search placed upon top of other search.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Crazy.
Really cool.
Yeah. Really cool. I mean, you
so
wonder.
Do I need a headset for that, or can
you just on the phone?
On your phone.
Yeah, whatever they did turned the rear camera on. You know, the normal. And so it started sucking in data from behind. In this case, they were on a poolside or something, and there was the shark suddenly by the pool with the chairs in the background. And as the child or whoever was holding the phone, as they walked closer to the seats, obviously the data coming to Google was saying these seats are getting bigger. So the shark got bigger because you were approaching it.
It's quite scary.
I mean, it's a gimmick,
crazy,
right?
Man.
It's a gimmick, but let's say that got refined by somebody. I don't know. You're an architect or something, and you want to just quickly throw up a wall. Well, it'll look like that.
Yep.
There you go. Fascinating. Yep. Really interesting. Yeah, fascinating. And there's only one more thing I would like to add, but I probably will drop it unless anybody's got interest in this dark web thing. I don't know much about the dark web, so I'll offer it up. If anybody wants to talk about it, I will. If not, we won't. That's a down.
How do you get to the dark web?
I don't even know.
I don't know where it is.
Well, it's probably in a cupboard because it's very dark.
That explains it.
Or it's permanently on the side of the earth facing away from the sun. That's probably where it is. They have to keep it on a permanently flying aeroplane. No, I think you go through like the onion router, you know, Tor, things like that. Would be my guess. But apparently, you know, there is this big dark web thing going on. People buying and selling all sorts. And the feds took it down, took bits of it down. Shane's getting interrupted. Look, they've ignored his sign.
It's the feds. They picked up. He's talking about the dark web.
Yeah.
The feds are coming.
The feds come in. Get it.
I'm actually about to run and dive into a bush and just hide out for 30 minutes.
Well, okay.
I'd stay there for half an hour.
I'd say that we're done. Are we done? Sadly, we look like we've lost Mr. Waumsley at some point.
He's posted on the WP Builds Facebook group. He just said sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Big Marker, I think eventually when he tried to, he texted me and he's saying that Big Marker in the end just gave up on him and said, look, your bandwidth's not really up to. So we'll get him on next time from Thailand. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Shane. Do you have anything you want to add?
Guys.
One at a time before we go away. Anything you're doing this week? Any places we might find you? Any fun things you know is going on?
Can't think of anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty boring.
That's all right.
Pretty boring week.
No, my week is going to be, releasing podcasts and all that, working on sites and stuff. It's just ordinary, but you never know. So I'll say tatty bye. I think we get booted out when I press this end broadcast. I think we'll get booted out. So I'll hook up with you in a moment. So thank you for joining us, everybody, and thanks to you guys for making it possible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.